Welcome to our hiatal hernia training. If you've been following us for a little while, you know that hiatal hernia is something that we are expert in. We've become experts simply because it's so misdiagnosed in conventional medicine, misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, and really the only offerings that people are given is either an antacid to handle their acid reflux or surgery when it's truly serious, which most cases are not surgical intervention needed, which is why everybody else has just sort of said, oh, you know, yeah, you have a mild hiatal hernia, that's not causing your symptoms, or it's completely misdiagnosed. So the way I want to start today is some tips that if you have a hiatal hernia, things you can do right away to not aggravate it and not make it worse. And then part two of this training is going to be how to really resolve it for good. And we have about an 80% success rate in hiatal hernia of all the different types, but we'll get into that in a moment. So basically, if you don't have any beforehand knowledge about hiatal hernia, the stomach, which is on the left side just under your rib cage, is in spasm. It's pushing up on the diaphragm. So one of the first hints is don't overeat, and also don't eat super fast. So you want to eat slowly and allow that stomach to slowly fill, and then also not overfill, because the poor little stomach's already in spasm, and most people who have been suffering with this for a long time have kind of figured that out already. It's like they can't eat too much without really feeling very overstuffed and bloated and very uncomfortable. So they tend to be sort of grazing throughout the day. So you want to figure out what your threshold is. Now again, this is just a little tip until we get to the real resolution, but it's a good tip because you can get pretty darn miserable if you eat very quickly, because when you eat quickly, that message to the brain that you're getting full doesn't go through as quickly, and then all of a sudden you're really overstuffed and you can be very, very uncomfortable. So slow down the eating and don't overeat. Also, once you've eaten, even if you haven't overeaten, but after you eat, you don't want to lie down, so you don't want to have a big meal and go to bed, or even lie down on the couch and watch TV, or, you know, watch a show on your iPad, what have you. You don't want to recline. You want gravity to help the stomach stay down and then digest a little bit better. So even semi-recumbent, like in a lazy boy, or you know, sort of slouched back in a chair, or slouched forward. You just want to walk around a little bit. A little walk after eating is always good, or at least be sitting very upright. Okay, and then the other thing is lifting. So if you're someone that works out and you lift heavy weights, having a hiatal hernia, the lifting that heavy weight can really bother it. So if you're lifting and you're having this problem, it's not that I don't want you to lift anything. I do want you to stay active, but less weight, so there's less effort on that whole intra-abdominal cavity, you know. And so you don't want to do super heavy weights. Definitely don't want to eat and then lift. That can be very aggravating. So you want to kind of find the sweet spot once again until we can completely correct it, so you're not aggravating by lifting something heavy. And you know, if you have a child that you lift up and they're old enough to get in your lap, it's like, okay, jump in my lap and then I've got you. And so it's not so much lifting the weight from the ground. The other thing is that a lot of times with hiatal hernia, constipation has created and or aggravated the problem. Now, I meet plenty of patients who are drinking a ton of water, taking magnesium, they've really upped their fiber, and they're still constipated. So I'm not saying this is the perfect solution, because of course we need to get to the real root cause, excuse me, of why the constipation is there. But for some, increasing your water, getting those 8 glasses of purified water throughout the day, taking magnesium citrate or aspartate is good, something to keep those bowels moving. Increasing your fiber with fruits and vegetables and salads. Good flaxseed is great. Ground flaxseed is a great source of fiber. Beans are a great source of fiber. So there's a lot of great sources of fiber in the diet. Not fiber pills. You want to do natural food as your source of fiber, much, much better. And And I appreciate if you say, oh, I've done that, nothing has worked. I get it. That means there's that deeper problem, which we're going to get into part 2. But if you haven't tried that, you certainly can. And it's very important to keep those bowels moving at least once a day, if not twice a day. An interesting thing that a lot of times people don't think about is, especially if the stomach is really sensitive, is a seat belt. So maybe you go to a restaurant, you have a really big meal, or you're at a friend's house and you have a big meal, and then that seatbelt, believe it or not, that pressure can be really aggravating. I'm not saying don't drive with a seatbelt, but what I am saying is take a little time, maybe take a little walk or hang out at the restaurant for a little while or with your friends, but let that, good 20, 30 minutes, let that food start to process through the stomach so you don't have that pressure. Because I've literally had people who, that pressure of the seatbelt, especially if they have to stop short, which of course you never know when that's going to happen, the seatbelt tightens and it can be very aggravating on the hiatal hernia. What else did I want to tell you? Sleeping with your head elevated can definitely help. If you wake up in the middle of the night feeling a little panicky or anxious or short of breath, that's that stomach pushing up on the diaphragm and getting your nervous system irritated. So if you can elevate the head of your bed, that absolutely helps. And then lastly, if you are in that kind of panic sensation state, which comes about because the diaphragm is not moving freely and you're feeling really anxious, the first time that happens, most people end up in the ER because they want to make sure that they're not having a heart attack, and well, usually it's the heart attack that they're trying to rule out. And most times, especially of course when it's this, you're told there's nothing wrong with your heart and you're simply having a panic attack. But it's really coming from this digestive problem. But if you're somebody who's been to the ER several times and you've already worked out the fact that it's not your heart, it's not your lungs, and you maybe don't know what it is, but you've ruled out that you're not having a heart attack, and you also realize there's no reason in going to the ER again because they keep telling you you're having a panic attack. There's a nice breathing technique, and I'm going to do it quickly, but actually the technique is slow. And what it does is it kind of helps reset your nervous system so that it kind of takes the panic down. Now realize this all started because you're not getting enough air, but doing this technique kind of breaks that spasm just a little bit, and it can be really, really helpful. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a really deep breath in and hold it as long as you can. I'm not going to hold as long as I can because you're going to just stand there watching me breathe. But let's take a deep breath and you hold it until you can't hold it anymore, and then right? And then as you exhale, you don't inhale again. You exhale, you leave it out until you have to bring it all the way in again, and again you hold it for as long as you can, and then until it goes, okay? So this will be your own timing, but you do that a few times and it really helps reset the nervous system and kind of break that anxious feeling, okay? So again, it's not a solution, but it for the moment can really settle down your nervous system, which is good in moments of panic. So let's go on to phase 2 of the training video, which is the real underlying root cause. And what the real cause is the stomach in spasm. So why? Why is your stomach in spasm? That's the $64 million question. Food sensitivities are very common. Now, granted, if every time you ate a certain food you got a stomach ache, you would have figured this out a long time ago. But it's subtle, this spasming, and initially, and you don't necessarily feel it every time you eat the food. So these food sensitivities can be a little hard to identify. But of all the cases, and again, we have at least an 80% success rate with hiatal hernia, if it's almost always one component, let me say, is a food sensitivity. It's very rare that that's not a component. So we figure out what those food sensitivities are, and unfortunately there's not an effortless test for this. So the blood tests, these IgG delayed sensitivity food tests, they tend to have a lot of false positives. So what we use, there is a great blood test for gluten, not just celiac, but for gluten sensitivity that we use, Otherwise, we do a modified elimination diet, which is really still the gold standard for food sensitivity testing, just because the blood, unfortunately, although it sounds so great, well, here, take some blood, check 200 foods, tell me what I can and can't eat. But unfortunately, those tests have a lot of false positives, so they're just not where they need to be. Hopefully one day they will be, but at the moment, not. So food sensitivities. Infections, whether an H. pylori infection in the stomach or very commonly infections in the upper small intestine and or lower intestine. So SIBO, you might have heard of, that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's where the bacteria that should be residing down in the lower colon come into the upper colon. They create a lot of gas, the bloating, the distension, that can force the stomach up. So we look at what those bacteria are. Sometimes you have to actually go in and kill them, but at the back of that is bile flow. So your liver makes bile, and bile is a beautiful detergent in that upper small intestine that keeps the bad bacteria at bay. So then why is your liver not making enough bile? Then when you're looking at sort of some toxin overload that's not allowing that bile to flow as well as it should. The beautiful thing is that all of these handlings are natural, so there's no drugs involved in any of this, but we have to tease this out and see what's really creating this. So food sensitivities, hidden infections, bile that's not working the way it is, some sort of toxic load that's burdening the liver that we look at. Then the constipation I mentioned earlier, very commonly that chronic constipation, again, which is often imbalance of good bacteria, bad bacteria, toxic load, that's created that intra-abdominal pressure. You know, people that are constipated have to bear down to move their bowels, and that increased pressure can force the stomach up. So we have all these aspects of the digestive tract that we have to look at: toxic load, sensitivities, infections, and really get to the root of that. That's the only way everything's going to settle down in that whole digestive tract, but especially that poor little stomach being up in spasm. Now there's a physical aspect of this that has to be addressed. It's not present in everyone, but when it is, it's everything to get to. So that stomach being in spasm has pushed up against that diaphragm. Remember the diaphragm, those two dome-like muscles on either side of underneath your rib cage, that every time you breathe in, they bow down. Every time you exhale, they bow up. And they have to move freely to let you have enough airflow. And they call it the diaphragmatic excursion, how much it can move. So if that stomach's pushed up against it, and the diaphragm can't move as much, it creates a lot of problems. And that's where you can get the heart palpitations, the shortness of breath, the feeling of anxiety, the panic attacks, pressure in the chest. All of these things that feel heart-lung related are really digestive related, and it's created by the diaphragm not being able to move. But why? Because that stomach's pushing up against it. So that's that whole scenario and how that works. So when that diaphragm has been pushed up for so long and is in spasm, there's actually a physical therapy and chiropractic technique that's done to kind of break that spasm. And then also we look at the neck, because the nerve that goes to the diaphragm comes from the neck. So a compounding factor can be individuals who have some neck tension and pain, and that nerve is not flowing as well to the diaphragm, and so it's not getting good communication from the brain to move as well as it should. So you can see there's several factors here, and while there are several, you know, it's not 25 long, although there's 15 symptoms we've associated with hiatal hernia. There's just really a few key things that we have to look at. So I wanted to start with the lifestyle techniques and tips, so you're not aggravating and making things worse. But we have to correct it. We have to really get to the root of it and correct it, because this can be a very life burden. Patients I've seen them homebound, I've seen them quit work. Their life is miserable because of this situation. And again, very misdiagnosed and undiagnosed. Diagnosed very often as panic attacks for some, diagnosed just as acid reflux for others, and there's much more going on. So what's exciting is we have a very good success rate. It can be miserable. You don't have to put up with it. If you're willing to do some diet and lifestyle changes, really that's all that it takes. So that's the resolution. Started out with some tips. I hope this was informative for you, but please reach out if you know anyone who has any of these chronic symptoms, because truly is easy to fix. Give me a call at the clinic, 408-733-0400, or visit the website, rootcausemedicalclinics.com. I'll see you soon.